flustered now because of you. Maybe wear the wrong t-shirt, it's all your fault. Just prior to the holiday breaks, WizKids was nice enough to give us a list of figures that a lot of people complain about, better known as the Watchlist. Those of you unfamiliar with what the Watchlist is, sometimes games recognize where there's balance issues, and some games deal with it. Magic the Gathering had the banned and restricted list. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has their banned and restricted list. WizKids has recently, in the year 2013, introduced this watch list. Now, this happens to occur quarterly, as we've discovered, because this is the quarter 4 watch list, as they listed it on the WizKids events system forum for rules, where they actually now have a section for clarifications and erratas. Now, prior to this announcement of what has changed, I had a chance to go on the Two Clicks from KO podcast. If you're not familiar with it, go to brandondegaff.podbean.com and you'll find an episode called Married to the Watchlist, which is where I had a chance to talk to those guys about some of my predictions, some of my thoughts on what they could do with the watchlist. One of which I was right on. One. So first, one of the first things, and probably the most maligned and the most mentioned in the forums and the discussion talks, was the entities. Are they broken? Are they overpowered? Something did make them very overpowered. Originally, each entity, when added to a character, would add all the collection of keywords they had, which, for the most part, every single one happened to have Cosmic and Entity. All of them. I don't think he had Cosmic, but he definitely had Entity, but he also had Monster. And they would share all of these keywords, most importantly the Entity, which is, incidentally, not a generic keyword, it's a named keyword. Now, their solution to this, and I think is a very brilliant solution in the sense of comic book theming, not completely destructive to the meta, but it doesn't take a piece of these away from it. What they have done is instead of giving you all of the keywords that these entities had, you're given one keyword. And that keyword is, in this case, what Lantern Core they match up. So those of you familiar with the comic books or not familiar with the comic books, Entity is White Lantern, so shares the White Lantern keyword. Butcher is Red Lantern, therefore shares the Red Lantern core keyword. Predator is Star Sapphire, therefore shares the Star Sapphire keyword. Parallax from the Sinestro Core shares the Sinestro Core keyword. Island shares the Green Lantern keyword. Ophidian shares the Orange Lantern keyword. Adara shares the Blue Lantern keyword. Proselyte shows the Indigo Tribe keyword. And Black Hand shares the Black Lantern Core keyword. And that's all they've done. The only change, so if you have the entities themselves, the only change to their actual wording is they don't give all the keywords, they just give the specific core keyword. Now what this does for the metagame is this takes away the abuse of the entities as part of your team to make them an entity keyword team. So you still have to kind of work to make a keyword team and keep it to core, or you have to give up your keyword altogether. Now, does that affect your value? Not really. I mean, you're still being able to spend 25 points a pop, you're still able to play multiple on your team. You just don't get the huge bonus of a theme team, you just happen to get a bunch of bonuses that are a lot easier to get. So, not a complete nerf. I'm sure we'll still see entities on some teams. It's just, it's kind of dialing it back just a little. So, next up. Now, this one was a big one. This is Bill, Agent of AIM. Those of you familiar with what Bill does, you know he was crushing a lot of aspects of the game, basically rendering the map practically worthless. For those of you unfamiliar with what he did, originally Bill's ability read, my High Energy Finder thing was what the ability is called. Give Bill, Agent of AIM, a power action and choose the highest point opposing character. Until your next turn, that character can be targeted with a ranged combat attack by one friendly character without line of fire to that opposing character. So Bill, sitting wherever he felt like, if he was on a second or third click, fourth click, by the way, he's dead, he'd be able to take a power action and take a character on your team, and he wouldn't only need range to an opposing character. Now, this did help with some aspects. Some guys were hiding behind barriers, some guys but it would just completely nuclearize any kind of terrain along the way. as well as any kind of line of fire requirements too. So things like the Indigo battery would be 100% countered by this because he originally wasn't drawing a line of fire. So the big change that they made for Bill is as follows. It now reads, my high energy finder thing, give Bill, Agent of Aim, a power action. Choose the highest point opposing character. Until your next turn, that character can be targeted with a ranged combat attack by one friendly character adjacent to Bill, Agent of Aim, and line of fire for that attack isn't blocked. Two important things happened here. One, you're now forced to put Bill in a situation where he has to move ahead or has to, a lot more pre-planning is required for Bill. Bill has to be out there and vulnerable. He can't be sitting in the starting area giving you free reign of everything. Second important aspect of this, in addition to that, is that now it says the line of fire can't be blocked. Now what that means is the line of fire is still being drawn. So if a line of fire is still being drawn, things like the Indigo power battery will stop the line of fire from being drawn. Things that stop line of fire from being drawn do affect this now. So that, Namor and water, I don't think that's a majorly relevant one. Excuse me. But it is a huge, important aspect to the game that has now been kind of balanced out. Now, that's not to say Bill isn't going to see play. He is still going to see some play. He's just going to take some more forethought, and you're going to see him coming. You might actually have a chance for more pre-planning and pre-reaction to him, as opposed to having to just deal with him being on the board. Alright, next up. Okay, this guy has been everywhere in the game. It doesn't matter where you're looking. You've seen this guy. You've probably played against this guy. You've heard me mention this guy because I had to talk about him several times as he has been winning a lot of tournaments. That is, of course, the Iron Pharaoh. Now, the Iron Pharaoh originally, he had his Falcon token, which he started the game with, and then every turn you could move that Falcon. Here it is. When Iron Pharaoh was first placed on the map, put a Falcon special terrain marker in an adjacent square. Give him a free action to move this marker 3 squares. He can then draw lines of fire and count range up to 3 squares, somewhat limited, from the Falcon marker using improved targeting, ignore hindering, ignore elevated, ignore outdoor, ignore characters. So basically, every turn you would move that Falcon, effectively giving him a 6 range from wherever he felt like having it. Now what they've done with this instead is they've changed it to read as follows. It still places next to him at the beginning of the game, but now the Falcon marker moves as if it is a character with the flight ability. So originally it was a special terrain marker that you could pretty much place on anywhere. You could sit it in the middle of blocking terrain, and it wouldn't really matter because all it had to do would be placed within any of your 3 squares. So now its movement rules have been changed to follow a character with flight's rules. That means they do still have to end up in a legal square at the end of the move. Now, in order to move it, you have a choice of give him a free action to either move the Falcon the 3 squares, or until the end of the turn, Iron Pharaoh can draw lines of fire and count range up to 3 squares from the Falcon marker using the same improved targeting. Now, I want to point out the major differences here. One is the fact that because of the flight ruling, like I just said, the marker has to end up in a square that a figure could legally land in. Also important and worth mentioning is that you give Iron Pharaoh a free action to either move the Falcon or draw your line of fire until the end of turn. Now, what this means is that you can't, if somehow you get the Iron Pharaoh to get probability control, you can't be using it on your opponent's turn from the bird. You are required to have the bird in a place prior to actually being able to fire out of the bird. As far as the major metagame is going, you're not going to see Iron Pharaoh anymore. One of the big things I want to point out about Iron Pharaoh was the fact that you could move the 3 and then take the action and then still be able to use things like probability control or whatever from that bird itself was what made him as epically powerful as he was. That he didn't have to leave starting areas unless he was in danger, in which case it was very easy to carry a grounded figure out of the starting area, am I right? So, all in all, the Iron Pharaoh is probably not going to see the level of play we've seen him. Now, that said, that means his opposing character who didn't like to leave the starting area, Phantom X, is very likely to come back into a more dominant area, but you won't see him in the ROC because of no tactics. So we're still going to be a bit for that. Now, the last figure worth mentioning on the watch list is Bizarro. Now, originally, Bizarro read, Me am not Bizarro. Bizarro costs 25 points for each Orazib token you place on his card, up to 12 tokens. When Bizarro takes damage, remove one Orazib token from his card. When Bizarro is healed, add one Orazib token to his card, no more than the initial amount. When there are no Orazib tokens on this card, KO Bizarro. At the beginning of your turn, roll d6, click Bizarro that many times. Two major changes have happened. I'm going to read out the whole thing and then we're going to talk about it afterwards. Bizarro costs 25 points for each Rosarbib, that's still the same thing, up to 6 tokens, and when he takes damage, remove one Orazib token from this card. When he's healed through the use of support, add one Orazib to this card, no more than the initial amount, and then you, of course, roll him at the beginning of the turn. Two important aspects. One, you can no longer play him at 300 points, you can play him only up to 150 points. So, you're not going to run into those teams that play Bizarro for 300 points and time you out after killing your Bill. That's not an issue anymore. You can only give him tokens back from support. Now, from the hard rules of this, I'm going to save Amber an episode. His dial can still be healed. If you use a healing ability on him, his dial still moves, but you're only going to get tokens when you use support with him. So what this does is this takes it. There's some teams. There was the head pool with Entity and Bizarro as a combination of figures was already pretty potent, and then of course they added on a Star Sapphire battery on it, and you saw where that went. Now, what doesn't change is the 25-point Bizarro. He stays the same. I love the 25-point Bizarro. I love me some 25-point Bizarro. And generally, how tough he is, up to 150 points, also kind of maintains. Now, myself, I've never been brave enough to really play a full 300-point Bizarro. When I do try to play him at a full 300 points, I keep ticking things down to support him. As well, even in a 300-point game, I think at most I've played him at 125, maybe 75, mostly on average. But for the major game, of course, the 300-point Bizarro no longer exists for timeout, and standard healing no longer affects him. Last but not least, I was right. I was totally right. I was right about this one. Proxima Midnight. She was on the watch list. She didn't get changed. Now, I want to point out, there's a couple reasonings I can think of and see as to why they didn't change Proxima Midnight. For one, Proxima is not an indomitable character, so she's, she's forced to, if you push her, kind of suck it up and deal with it unless you have an outsourced source to give her willpower. Bill was making her strong. But Bill was making her strong in the sense that Bill could stay back and wasn't in danger while Proxima was forward. That has changed significantly now. Proxima Midnight doesn't fly, which means she can't carry Bill. So now using her in conjunction with Bill takes significantly more work and pre-planning in order to do. You have to build more around it in order to get Bill into the position you need him in order to combine Proxima's ability to running shot and use her shooting. So what they've done already, it's one of those set cases, kind of like what happened with the Brother Voodoo, where there was things around Brother Voodoo that made him supremely amazing, but he was just good, and he was a prime and deserved to be good. In this case, Proxima Midnight is good, but she's not, she's not impossible to kill, she's not impossible to deal with, especially now that Bill has kind of had the nerf. So, that's it. That has been my take on the watch, or that's not even my take on the watch list. That is just the watch list, and how it has affected the game as a whole. In a nutshell, we're probably not going to see Iron Pharaoh in major metagame play. We are going to see entities, but in much smaller amounts. You're not going to see whole entity teams anymore. You're going to see them splashed, maybe at best, or if you use a team, it's going to be a super effective team using the best of these entities' abilities. Bill is going to take a lot more work to use. And Bizarros, you're not going to see super point Bizarros but you might still see that 25-point carrying Bizarro or the occasional 50-point Bizarro. Married with Clix is proudly sponsored by Majestic's Comics, Collectibles, and Games, located in Costa Mesa, California, near the Orange County Fairgrounds. If you don't happen to live in the Costa Mesa, California area, though, you can check out their website, linked down below, majesticccg.com, where you can check out all kinds of stuff to shop for, their regular tournament listings if you happen to live in the area, or if you need to shop, they've always got some Heroclix stuff if you check out both their eBay store, which is linkable in their website, as well as their online store, which I believe should be having product added soon enough. Also, they keep regular articles written by some of the great minds in Heroclix, including Adam Friedman, the 2014 Heroclix Nationals champ, and of course, the owner of the store, Patrick Yabjoko, the 2014 Heroclix Worlds champ, 2014 Team Worlds champion, as well as the 2014 DragonCon ROC champion. Wow, that's quite a year he had last year. I think he's going to repeat it in 2015, right? So, don't forget to check the link down below, or check out the store if you live in the area.